Hi, Dr. Becca here with Del Mar Center for Behavioral Health. Today I want to do a short video about the ABCs of behavior. This is probably something that you hear your therapist or your board certified behavior analyst or BCBA talk about. And the ABCs is an important part of data collection, and then data collection is an important part of developing an effective and appropriate intervention plan. So they're super important. So ABC stands for Antecedent, Behavior, Consequence. And what an antecedent is, well, let's start with behavior because that's usually the easiest. The behavior is anything that the person or the child does. So there's usually action words or verbs like kicked, ate, threw, spoke, pinched, right? Whatever the behavior is. And it's usually easiest to start with the behavior because it's usually the easiest to identify. And the antecedent is whatever comes immediately before that behavior. And it's not an hour before or usually a day before, it's right before that behavior. So in the example of if I'm a teacher and I I put a math worksheet on Johnny's desk and Johnny tears it up and throws it on the floor. So the behavior there is Johnny tearing up the worksheet and throwing it on the floor. And what might be the antecedent? If you said me putting the paper on his desk, you'd be right. So I put the paper on his desk, he ripped it up and threw it on the floor. And the consequence is whatever happens immediately after that behavior. I think for us, consequence often has a negative connotation, the way we use it in regular interaction, right? And it's you get a consequence. But consequence really just means anything that happens immediately following the behavior. So back to our example of Johnny and the worksheet. So I put the worksheet on his desk, Johnny tears it up, and then I send him out of the classroom. So the antecedent is me putting the paper on Johnny's desk for him to do it. The behavior is him tearing up the worksheet and throwing it on the floor. And then the consequence is that he's set out of the classroom. So anytime a child or any person is engaging in behaviors that we don't want to see more of, they're often called maladaptive behaviors. So we want to take this ABC data on those maladaptive behaviors because really what we're doing is looking for patterns. We're kind of being behavioral detectives and trying to identify, why is this person doing this behavior? Because when we can understand why, then we can come up with an intervention plan to help move them towards a different behavior. We really only engage in behaviors that serve a purpose for us, right? So we keep doing things that are working. I drive the speed limit because I don't get speeding tickets. I show up to work on time because I get paid and get promotions. I pay for my food at the supermarket because I don't get arrested and then I can leave with the food, right? And so if Johnny doesn't like doing math, and then I send him out of the room when he tears up the paper, I've actually just reinforced that behavior because now he doesn't have to do the math work. And that's probably not what my intended purpose was, right? I probably intended for him to have to go to the office or go somewhere to get in trouble, right? So that it's a negative thing. But if what's motivating him is not completing the work, I've actually just taught him that tearing up the paper and throwing it on the floor is an effective way to get out of doing his work. Now, I won't be able to identify this just after one occurrence, right? So typically, your treatment team is going to ask you to help them collect that ABC data over a period of time. Because over a period of time is when we can see those patterns develop. And the more data points we have, or the more information that we have, the better hypothesis we can come up with, or the better guess or educated guess we can make about why the individual's engaging in that behavior. And when we can make a better guess, we can come up with a better plan, and then it's more likely that that plan's going to work. So if we go back to Johnny, And we've got, let's say, a week of this ABC data, and every time it's in math class and it's the presentation of math work, and every time he does something that results in him getting sent out of the classroom, we can come up with the idea of, well, maybe that's why he's doing this. So what we want to do is make sure that he does not get out of that math work for those maladaptive behaviors. We may still need to send him out of the classroom, but that math work is going to follow him, right? And so he's not getting out of his math work, and so that behavior is no longer going to be working for him. And so the hope is that then we can intervene and teach him a replacement behavior or a better way to get help or to manage the distress that he may be experiencing with the math work. So a recap, the ABCs of behavior analysis are super important. It is sort of the guiding language that we use to look, to collect data and then to look for patterns in that data. And we usually start with the behavior because that's often the easiest to identify. And we're looking for those action words or those verbs like kicked, ate, poked, read, said, cried, right? These are the behavior. And then to find the antecedent, which is what happens immediately before the behavior, we're going to look at what exactly happened before the behavior. And then consequence is what happens immediately after the behavior occurs. It isn't necessarily a good or a bad thing. Remember, we're just objectively collecting data. We're just describing what happened before the behavior, what was the behavior, and then what happened after the behavior. And when we have a bunch of data points or we have a good chunk of information about these behaviors and the patterns within which they're occurring, we can use those ABC data to come up with, as part of the FBA or the Functional Behavior Assessment. I have another video about that you can watch for more information. So as part of completing the FBA from this ABC data is really coming up with a plan that's going to be most likely to help replace the maladaptive behavior with behaviors we want to see more of. Again, I'm Dr. Becca. I hope this was helpful and have a great day.